Imagine standing on a windswept Montana hill in 1876, where the blood of 260 soldiers stains the grass, and 2,000 native warriors ride away victorious. This is no tale of a heroic last stand, it's a story of broken promises, buried truths, and a nation's myth-making. For nearly 150 years, we've called it Custer's Last Stand, but what if the real story isn't about Custer at all? Why has America clung to a legend that glorifies a reckless defeat while silencing the triumph of a people defending their home? Uncover the secrets of the Greasy Grass, where history was rewritten before the dust settled. Misreading Custer, 150 Years of Myth and Truth at Little Bighorn. In late June 1876, the Little Bighorn Valley, called Greasy Grass by the Lakota Sioux, became the stage for one of America's most enduring legends. On June 25, Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, a Civil War hero, led 260 men of the 7th Cavalry into a clash with 2,000 Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors, as historian John Gray documented. By dusk, Custer and his entire detachment lay dead, a defeat that stunned a nation celebrating its centennial. Yet, for nearly 150 years, the story of Custer's Last Stand has been misread, twisted into a tale of heroic sacrifice against savage foes. Why has this myth persisted, and what truths have been buried? The traditional narrative, etched into textbooks and paintings, casts Custer as a gallant officer ambushed in a sneak attack by Sitting Bull's warriors, as described in early accounts like the New York Herald's 1876 Massacre headline. Paintings depict him standing defiant, pistols blazing, beside fallen comrades, a romantic image of sacrifice for westward expansion. This story vilified native warriors as obstacles to innocent settlers, spurring harsher U.S. policies. But the truth is starkly different. The settlers were illegal, violating the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie, which promised the Black Hills to the Lakota for all time, as D. Brown noted in Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Gold discovered in 1874 drew 15,000 prospectors, and when the Lakota refused to sell in 1875, the army was unleashed to clear them. Custer wasn't tricked. Scout reports warned of a massive village, 8,000 people, 1,500 to 2,500 warriors, yet he charged, expecting to repeat his 1868 Washita massacre, where he targeted Cheyenne women and children, as he boasted in My Life on the Plains. The battle was no ambush but a successful native defense against an act of aggression. Why was this framed as a tragedy for Custer rather than a triumph for the Lakota and Cheyenne? The answer lies in a nation hungry for heroes and a press eager to deliver them. What drove this distortion? How did a defeat become a legend? To unravel the Custer myth, we must start with the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie, a solemn U.S. pledge to the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, guaranteeing the Black Hills as sacred land. As Robert Utley wrote in Cavalier and Buckskin, the treaty was a rare moment of diplomacy after decades of conflict. But by 1874, whispers of gold turned promise to dust. Prospectors swarmed Deadwood, their numbers swelling to 15,000 by 1875, as mining ledgers confirm. The U.S., pressured by settlers and railroads, demanded the Lakota sell their land. Sitting Bull, a Hunkpapa Lakota leader, refused. The Black Hills are not for sale. Why did the U.S. break its word? The post-Civil War era was gripped by manifest destiny, a belief in America's divine right to expand. Gold fever and railroads sharpened this hunger, slicing through native rights. In 1875, talks collapsed, and General Philip Sheridan's army was tasked with forcing the tribes onto reservations. By June 1876, Sitting Bull's village along the Greasy Grass grew to 8,000, a coalition swollen by those fleeing starvation, as scout reports noted. General Alfred Terry, underestimating them at 800 warriors, sent Custer to scout, not attack, a fatal misstep. The Lakota and Cheyenne weren't lawless, they defended their legal homeland. Custer, aware of the village's size via scouts like Mitch Boyer, ignored warnings, banking on surprise to shatter families, as he did at Washita. His 600 men, split into vulnerable units, 210 with him, 175 with Major Reno, 125 with Captain Benteen, faced a united foe wielding terrain and Winchesters. The treaties' betrayal set the stage, yet textbooks framed settlers as victims. Why was the treaty ignored? How did this justify Custer's attack? June 25, 1876, was no sneak attack. Custer's scouts, including Crow Tracker Half-Yellow Face, spotted the Greasy Grass village at dawn, 1,200 lodges, 15,000 to 20,000 horses, signaling 1,500 to 2,500 warriors, as Nathaniel Philbrick detailed in The Last Stand. Lieutenant Charles Varnum's note, delivered by Iroquois courier Red Star, warned Custer, but he scoffed, "Will be done by supper." His plan, charged the village, expecting panic, as at Washita, where he killed women and children to break warriors' spirits. Instead, he met fierce resistance. Major Reno's 175 men forded the 50-yard river, charging south. They faced 500 to 1,000 warriors, Winchesters outgunning Springfield's. Reno, outnumbered, retreated to a cottonwood grove, then bluffs, losing 40 men. North, Custer's 210 men clashed with Gall's warriors on Last Stand Hill, surrounded within an hour. All perished, Custer's body bearing 2 gunshot wounds, heart and temple, left untouched, a sign of respect, as Cheyenne accounts later confirmed. The terrain, cliffs, ravines, favored defenders, as Gregory Michno wrote in Lakota Noon. Why call it Custer's Last Stand? The term, coined by 1876 newspapers, framed a reckless defeat as heroic. Native oral histories, like Cheyenne warrior Wooden Legs, call it a defense, "We fought for our homes." Yet, textbooks and paintings ignored this, portraying warriors as savages. The battle was a triumph for a people protecting their way of life, not a tragedy for a failed aggressor. Why was native strategy overlooked? What fueled the savage stereotype? By July 1876, Custer's defeat was national news. The Chicago Tribune ran sketches of fallen officers, while the New York Herald's massacre headline inflamed outrage during America's centennial. Custer, a celebrity who ghostwrote dispatches, was primed for myth. His widow, Elizabeth Custer, cemented this with Boots and Saddles, 1885, painting him as a martyr. Wild West shows, like Buffalo Bills, reenacted the Last Stand, casting native actors as villains, sometimes ironically, veterans of the battle. Silent films, like Errol Flynn's They Died with Their Boots On, 1941, spread romantic lies. Textbooks followed. By the 1920s, the American Book Company faced backlash for omitting Custer, as Northern Plains booksellers demanded his inclusion, despite historians noting the battle's limited strategic impact. Why was Custer indispensable? Textbooks aren't history, they craft identity, as the Kitch Bangkok noted. They shied from contradictions, like founding fathers owning slaves or settlers breaking treaties, presenting a unified American tale. Native students, like Lakota elder Singing Hawk's grandson in South Dakota, learned Custer's myth but not their ancestors' victory. The press and shows ignored the Lakota's legal claim, vilifying them as obstacles to civilization. Elizabeth Custer's books silenced Custer's Washita atrocities, while films erased native voices. How did media shape Custer's legend? Why were native truths suppressed? For decades, the Greasy Grass story lay buried. In 1983, a prairie fire cleared the Little Bighorn battlefield, exposing cartridge cases, arrowheads, and a soldier's watch, stopped at 3:22 p.m. Archaeological digs from 1984, using metal detectors and GIS mapping, revealed Custer's men fought in scattered groups, not a heroic stand, as David Eagle's research showed. Native artifacts, war clubs, beads, confirmed oral histories of strategic brilliance, long dismissed. Ballistics proved warriors wielded superior Winchesters, outgunning Springfields. In 1991, the site's name changed to Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument, reflecting a shift. The 2003 Indian Memorial honored warriors' names beside the 7th Cavalry obelisk, a cultural dialogue. Native voices, like Singing Hawk, whose grandmother fought at 16, reached classrooms, we defended our land. Historians like Philbrick exposed Custer's intent, a massacre to break tribes. Oral histories, once ignored, gained credibility, aligning with archaeological finds, as Michno's Lakota voices documented. Why the delay? Textbooks served white narratives, and early historians dismissed Native accounts as unreliable. The 1960s civil rights movement and Native activism, like the American Indian movement, forced a reckoning. Schools began questioning Custer's heroism, though change lagged. A 1995 Lakota curriculum guide, ignored by many districts, called the Battle of Defense. What slowed this shift? How did archaeology validate Native stories? Today, Little Bighorn is no shrine to Custer but a space of truth. The National Monuments rangers and Native interpreters, like Cheyenne Guide 2 Eagles, share both sides, cavalry tactics, warrior courage, and the broken 1868 treaty. Smartphone apps guide visitors through markers, revealing terrain's role. Annual ceremonies unite descendants, healing wounds. Lakota activists, citing the treaty, contest the Black Hills theft, a legal battle ongoing in 2025. Textbooks now grapple with genocide's shadow, though many still soften settlers' illegality. Historians view Custer as flawed, driven by ambition, not a hero or fool. The 1876 shockwave, amplified by newspapers, fueled the Dawes Act and reservations, yet sparked reform voices, as the Boston Globe's 1876 editorials urged humane policies. The battle, called Greasy Grass by Lakota, remains a symbol of resistance. Singing Hawk, 70, teaches Lakota youth, our victory lives. A student's essay, left at the Indian Memorial, reads, Greasy Grass was our stand. Little Bighorn reflects America's struggle with truth and justice. As the wind carries Singing Hawk's words over the valley, we ask, how can we honor the Greasy Grass truth? What does it teach us about sovereignty today?